Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be previewing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers preseason Week 3 matchup versus the Houston Texans. But I am not alone in this video today. Joining me from the Cannon Fire podcast is one of my best friends. It is Rhett. Rhett, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back here talking to you again. Second time in a week. I feel like I was just here.
Absolutely, so nice. We had to have you on twice.
There you
So
go. I like that.
Of course, man, of course. So, for everybody watching this video, if you guys are new here, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos, and leave us your thoughts about this upcoming game down in the comment section down below. I will be doing a live game reactions live stream tomorrow night starting at 7:50. Come and check that out if you want to. But, right, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, right? And the first thing that I want to mention that I kind of want to get into in terms of storylines, things along those lines, is the starters finally getting some real live action game time playing. What are your thoughts on this entire situation? It seems like they're going to be playing the entire first half here.
Yeah, well, it's about time. Bruce Arians did make it clear these guys are going to play the first half. He said even maybe some of the second half, but honestly, I mean, if they're playing in the second half, that means that first half was just terrible. Like, I don't think Bruce is going to keep them out there any longer than he needs to. But for the fans and for us watching preseason football, it is a breath of fresh air because the Bucs haven't given us very much over these first two games. But I'm excited to see what these guys can do. It's a chance for everybody, to just kind of shake off the ring rust or what's left of it. It's the last big hurrah between training camp, the preseason, and then after this, it's Thursday night football against Dallas. So we remember how rusty this team looked week 1 against the Saints last year, and that's because they missed out on the hundreds of reps that they're getting, over these past 2 months, basically. But I think this team is going to be in a good spot, and I'm excited to see what the starters can do, but it's definitely overdue. Another thing that's kind of interesting to note is that the Bucs really aren't the only team in the NFL this year that's waiting until the third game to kind of let their starters loose. I know we've kind of talked about, how confusing it is with this new preseason. It's a 3-game cycle now, so teams are kind of getting used to how to manage their players. But a lot of teams are going to be playing most of their starters this week for the longest period of time. So, for the Bucs, I'm just excited to see what we can do for sure on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is good to finally get these guys some playing time. It can only help, right? I know there are some people who are worried about certain things. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this video. But overall, they need the reps. They need the live game action. I think what Bruce Arians is doing here makes sense. I understand why he's doing it. And it does depend on team to team. In fact, Rhett, I just saw today, I think the Eagles aren't playing any of their starters for, I believe, the second game in a row. So it's just a weird thing. It's on a team-by-team basis here, basically whatever the team wants to do. I do agree a lot with what Bruce Arians is doing here, getting a lot of these guys some starting reps.
Oh, yeah, I think so. There's plenty of guys on the bubble, too, who might be getting reps with the ones. Like O.J. Howard is somebody we could probably talk about. I know he's been under some criticism these past few weeks. Some fans not very happy with where he is at. It's also important to remember that, other than the preseason action he's gotten already and what reps he's gotten in training camp, O.J. Howard hasn't played football in 11 months. And he's coming off of a pretty major injury. So for a guy like OJ, I'm interested to see where he's at as far as, running with the ones this Saturday night. I'm excited to see a couple of other players on the defensive side of the ball. I think Jamel Dean out there is going to have a little bit of a highlight on him. A lot of people are going to be paying attention to him because out of the corners that we have, Carlton Davis and SMB have had great camps, but Jamel Dean, some people start to feel like he's getting a little stagnant. But, I think these reps are what is needed for guys like Jamel Dean and O.J. Howard, maybe a couple of other players we talk about that aren't necessarily starters. But, the more reps, the better. And, I mean, getting your starters as warmed up as they can be for week 1. As long as they come out of there healthy, we should be all good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the next point I wanted to bring up was there's still some battles going on maybe for starting positions. Who knows? We have to wait and see. I talked about this in the previous video with Matt Matera earlier today. The starting running back battle. Harold Goodwin came out and said, hey, this could be decided, here in this preseason game. Ronald Jones versus Leonard Fournette. That's a battle that's going on right now. Aaron Stinnie and Alex Kappa. Bruce Arians said, oh, it's closer than you think. Now it could be Bruce doing a Bruce Arians thing, but it's still worth paying attention to. Mike Edwards is making the most of his opportunities right now with Jordan Whitehead being out with injuries. You talked about Jamel Dean and O.J. Howard. Both these guys are kind of pushing for more starting rotation-esque roles. There's a lot of stuff going on here with guys battling for starting positions or starting rotations. What are your thoughts about all of that going on right now?
Yeah, man, I think it's nice and healthy. It's exactly what the preseason is for, right? You talk about some of these positional battles. As far as the one on the offensive line goes between Aaron Stinnie and Alex Kappa, I think you and I just did a video on this the other day, but I'll kind of reiterate what I said there. I still believe it's Alex Kappa's job to lose. I think Aaron Stinnie has been playing his ass off, and he deserves the recognition that he's kind of starting to get because he played great throughout the playoffs. He was, there in the biggest game in Bucs franchise history, and he did his job. We didn't hear a whole lot about Aaron Stinnie on the O-line because he went out there and did a good job. But as far as Alex Kappa is concerned, he is still Jason Light's guy. He is still the Bucs guy. They drafted him to be this guy. And I know the contract negotiations kind of looming after this season might be a discussion we have at a later time. But until he loses it, I think it's definitely Kappa's job. Now, for the running back position, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, it's always interesting because I'm expecting a rotation similar to what we had last year. I think there's going to be plenty of moments throughout the regular season where we're like, oh man, why did they take Ronald Jones out? Or why did, they take Lenny out just now or for the second half because he really seemed to get something going in the first. So as far as that starting battle goes, I still give the edge to Rojo because I think he's the best runner on this team. I know Leonard Fournette has a resume, but I still like Rojo as a running back a little bit better. Neither of them can catch the ball out of the backfield, which prevents them from being 3-down backs. But luckily, the Bucs were able to sign Gio Bernard, who can fill that hole. But being a starter as a running back basically just means to me that's who you're going to see first, right? And I think that's going to change a couple of times throughout the season. So if I have to predict right now before the game, I think it'll be Ronald Jones week 1 getting the rock first. But it could change. I mean, we've seen this team is, no stranger to making some adjustments at running back if they feel they have to. So I don't think that'll change this season. So as far as the starting job there goes, if it goes one way or the other, I don't think it's going to be too detrimental to that guy getting carries this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said there in terms of healthy competition, right? Guys pushing each other, iron sharpening iron. There's still some interesting guys to keep note of, right? Because you don't know. Jamel Dean couldn't end up really getting into that rotation. Ronald Jones and then Leonard Fournette, who knows what's going to happen with that. O.J. Howard, there's been some concerns there, but you still probably assume he's going to be in there over Cameron Brate come week 1. But I still think so. But I still think it's worth paying attention to.
And even Cam Brate hasn't gotten a lot of preseason action. I know he's been struggling coming back from that injury. He did practice a few days, but he hasn't even been out there as consistently as OJ has since he's come back from his injury. So, I still have OJ pegged as at least the tight end 2, if we're calling Gronk tight end 1. I would put OJ over Cam at this point, but with Cam Brate, you kind of know what you're going to get. With OJ Howard, it's a different case because, this is a first round draft pick who has just been struggling to live up to the standard that was set for him coming out of college. You remember how exciting OJ Howard was. He was, touted as one of the most dynamic tight ends to ever come out of college football, and injury has just plagued his first 5 years in the league. So hopefully this year, he can really start to get things rolling and stay healthy. But I think if he hits his ceiling, it gets so exciting. And I would definitely peg him above Cam. With all due respect to Cam Brate, it's just the current situation with him kind of being weird about the injury and not getting as many preseason reps. I would put OJ above Cam as it stands right now.
Well, there you go. And Rhett, besides some starting positions that are still maybe a little bit murky as to who's going to be the clear-cut guy, competitions going on with that, there are other competitions going on around this roster, specifically for these last few roster spots, right? Special teams play, 5th cornerback, 4th safety, 10 linebackers, 10 DBs, backup O linemen. There's a lot of stuff going around at a lot of different positions right now. What have your thoughts been about some of those guys who have impressed you battling for these last few roster spots? Because this is those guys' last, and then last again's chance to make
Right.
that impression. So what have your thoughts been about all those backup and deeper cut types of position battles?
Yeah, there's been some good ones to watch. I've been paying attention to that last corner spot. Antonio Hamilton is my guy. But Bruce Arians has made it no secret he's a big fan of D. Delaney these past few weeks. So that one's going to be interesting because, a lot of people look at Hamilton and think he has the job in the bag, but you never know. And I know that they're not going to get as much playing time this week as they did the last week. But like you said, you got to make that half count. If you're on the field for most of these guys in the second half, this could be their last game in a Bucs uniform. It could be their last NFL game, right? These guys are fighting for roster spots. And, that's when you ultimately see them play their best. You got to come out. You got to make a big play. So I think whoever makes a big play this weekend is going to go a long way in the second half, makes a big play. But the other position battle I've been looking at is offensive line. The Bucs have brought in so many offensive linemen. At one point, we had 15 signed to the team. I think that's still the case. A couple of names that came up today because of the news, Nick Leverett and Earl Watford, actually, I think are going to miss the game this week. Now, for Watford, it's a little different because he's a vet, but Nick Leverett has had a really good camp. He's shown to be kind of a versatile guy, which they like at the offensive line position. And I mean, he's another one of those guys who's been playing his ass off. And for him to pop up on the list and miss the game this week, it's going to be unfortunate. I'm not sure if he makes the roster. He probably will if we're talking about depth guys, but just the battles between those scrappy guys getting those last spots. But the two I've been watching the most are just all the battles in the offensive line, finding out who your best depth pieces are going to be. And then that last corner spot, which I think is going to be Antonio Hamilton because I'm a big fan of him, but you never know.
Yeah. When you mentioned it, and that's kind of the next thing that I want to talk about is, this is potentially the last game for a lot of guys in a Buccaneers uniform. And you said also it could be guys' last NFL game. And that's a sobering thought, right? That's something that is a lot of guys are going to lose their jobs, potentially their careers, and that sucks to see. Just ahead of time here, I want to wish all those guys the best in their future endeavors. But, Rhett, one thing that's going to be an interesting thing to pay attention to is with those final few roster spots, and Bruce Arians has said it as well, it's not a guarantee because not only do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to get their roster down to 53 guys by August 31st, but so do the other 31 teams in the league. Waiver wire pickups are a thing. Practice squad guys are a thing. So there's potential more chances there for some of those guys, but there's also potential opportunities for the Buccaneers to add more depth pieces at certain positions. And that's definitely going to be something worth paying attention to. What are your kind of thoughts? Do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be particularly active on the waiver wire after the final preseason game come maybe September 1st, August 31st, whenever those final preseason cuts are made?
I think they could be for sure. It just depends on what positions they feel needs the most help. If they are going to be active on the waiver wire, I like guys in the trenches. You can never have too many depth guys on the offensive and defensive line. We talked before about how depth on the defensive line for Tampa Bay is probably something that could be nitpicked at as a weakness for this team in 2021. You've got a great starting defense, don't get me wrong, but after Ndamukong Suh, Will Golston, and Steve McClendon, you have Nacho, but we kind of know what those guys can do, right? And they're not necessarily getting any younger. It certainly helps that Pat O'Connor has been having a great preseason. Khalil Davis has really improved as a pass rusher, getting his nose in some plays so far throughout this preseason. He's had a really good camp. So I know that seeing progression from those guys has got to make you feel better about the depth. But if they're still kind of looking at that position, thinking there's more work to be done, then the waiver wire could be the way to go. But ultimately, it just depends on how they feel about the rest of the team. But that's kind of, for me, the two glaring needs on this team right now is just you can't have enough fat guys down on the trenches, man, because they will make or break your football team.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. I mean, for specifically for me, man, that backup O-line, there are some good guys back there, some solid vets back there as well, but injuries have been a big concern for some of those backup guys. A lot of guys have missed opportunities. A lot of guys who potentially could have made this roster if they would have been fully healthy. So it's going to be worth seeing, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to add another backup O-lineman or two? That's why I made, hey, will the Buccaneers trade Jose Borregales for a backup offensive lineman? Because they maybe need a little bit more depth there, Maybe they'll add another corner. Maybe they'll add a fourth safety. Maybe they're not, enamored with some of the backup guys that they have. Who knows? But it will be worth paying attention to. Maybe they'll add another backup edge rusher as well. Who knows, really? Like you said, it's whatever they deem it to be in terms of, oh man, we need some depth here. Oh, that guy just got cut. Let's bring him in. So
right. At
the end of the day, we will have to wait and see. But like I talked about, injuries have been a thing that have plagued the backup offensive lineman. And Rhett here with, the final preseason game, it comes up every preseason game, but trying to come away from this injury-free, right? I'm already knocking on wood here because it's a scary thing. Right? It really is a scary thing, but it is something that's worth talking about. Injuries can't happen at any single moment in any game. So, kind of what are your thoughts here? Do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should play their starters the entire first half? Because I know that there will be people who bring up questions of, do you really want to risk him getting hurt? Overall, what are your thoughts about concerns like that?
I think it's going to come down to their performance. If they go out there and they put together 3 scoring drives in 3 attempts, then, I'd like to say that they can be done by halfway through the second quarter and they don't even have to finish out the first half. But if it's a close game, like if it's 3-0 Bucs at the half, I don't think Bruce is going to be very satisfied. And I think you will see those guys in the second half. So for their sake, they're probably going to want to go out there and perform, but I think that's what it's going to come down to. Staying healthy is obviously priority number 1, but this is your chance. This is your closest chance to see the 2021 Buccaneers, the regular season Bucs on the field, right? And for Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich, I know that the play calling is going to be vanilla compared to what they roll out in the regular season, but you still want to see these guys go out there and execute, right? Most of the play calls are plays that they've probably been running in camp and they can do in their sleep, but you want to see them go out there and do it. And the fact that they're going up against the Houston Texans, whose defense is pretty widely known to not be very good. I'd like to see them go out there and produce and give these fans something to be excited about, because the second and the third team offense has not given these fans very much to be excited about over these last few weeks.
Yeah, it's almost like not an impossible situation, but it's like, what do you want? Because they've got to get live game reps, right? You can't just wrap them all up in bubble wrap and go, it's all going to be okay, man. Like, it's impossible. Yeah. It has to happen, right?
You got to get your body used to rep after rep after rep of live action. For those offensive and defensive linemen who are clanging helmets every single snap, it takes your body a little bit to get used to that again.
Yeah, and I would say, if anything, if they weren't out there getting reps and then they came into week 1 cold, that could cause more injuries.
Yeah.
That could be a big significant factor.
Well, you remember Dirk Cutter. He was ridiculous about they never really hit at camp, right? I think it was his last season at camp. They maybe did some tackling, but there was never any tackling in Dirk Cutter camp. And a lot of those Bucs teams suffered some very weird hamstring oriented injuries early on in the season. And I think conditioning your body to get back to full speed is really, really important.
Yeah.
And that's a reason why.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. So it just comes with the territory, right? I mean, like I said, it's an impossible thing because people are going to go, oh man, they shouldn't be getting this much playing time. But then the same people go, oh, why aren't they out there more? They've got to be ready.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, after this game, they're not playing for a week and a half?
Yeah, you got a week and a half till Dallas, a week and 4 days.
Right.
5 days.
So they're gonna need that live action. They need it. And injuries come with the territory, and there's nothing that can be done about that besides just knocking on wood, hoping and praying that everything comes away okay. And I think it will. I think everything will be fine when everything is said and done. But Rhett, that's it. That's kind of all the things I wanted to talk about here coming into this game. It's going to be a really awesome game, but also have a little bit of some sadness to it, right? In regards to some of these guys being the last time in Buccaneers uniforms, not being able to get a spot on the practice squad, roster cuts, guys who might have even been with the team for years,
Right.
So it's an important thing to, have respect for a lot of those guys and wish them the best in their future endeavors.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Griffin, technically the longest tenured Buccaneers quarterback in history, could potentially be playing his final game as a Buccaneer. I do think he ends up on the practice squad, but still,
Right.
for a guy like that, whose confidence has been questionable throughout the preseason, it's not a great feeling, but you have to recognize that he's been there. He's, been Mr. August before. And he's just one of those guys on this team that, you got to kind of come to peace with. No matter the situation, obviously, it should end up okay. But yeah, just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, let us know what you think about all the things that we talked about down in the comments section down below. Rhett, I thank you for joining me in this video today. And before we sign off, do you have any final words?
Just want to remind everybody, check out the Cannon Fire podcast if you haven't already. We actually just released a new episode, our very own game preview. Myself and Evan, we're breaking down this Saturday's game between the Bucs and the Texans. If you guys want to check that out right after you watch this video, make sure you do so. And then follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast.
Absolutely, and I will have links to Rhett's Twitter pages as well as the latest video that they have uploaded down in the pinned comment in the comment section down below. Again, guys, don't forget tomorrow's live stream will be starting at 7:50. I will be live with my game reactions for preseason week 3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Houston Texans. But guys, with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, we will see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.